Hey guys, what's up, Communications? Welcome to my review of the 1995 live-action adaptation of the anime manga series of the same name, Fist of the North Star. This is actually a 2-disc special edition I have now, thanks to MegaPorkChopExpress. This is the last of the reviews of the films that MegaPorkChopExpress sent me. He couldn't get into this, and I can see why. This is not a movie for everybody. I'm going to say it right off the bat. But I have a little bit of a soft spot for this flick. First off, this is the first way I was introduced to the character of Kenshiro and Fist of the North Star. I didn't even know there was an anime. I didn't even know there was a manga. I only knew about this movie until I discovered the manga and anime later after I saw this, because I liked what I saw and it was pretty cool and different. And I saw the anime, and I have to admit, the anime is better. The anime is better than this movie. I'm not going to say that this is on par with the anime. It isn't. It really isn't. Anime is a lot better than this film. But I still have a soft spot for this flick. First off, it's how I was introduced to the character Fist of the North Star. So I think maybe that's why I have a little bit more of a soft spot for it. And also because since I didn't watch the anime and adored it already and adored the manga before I saw this film, I didn't really have any preconceived notions of what the film should be. So that's another thing. I think I was able to enjoy it for what it was because I didn't even know an anime or a manga existed. So I can see why some fans are upset with the film. I can get it. It's not a 100% accurate adaptation of the anime or the manga. It does take a lot of loose liberties, takes its own liberties with the concept, with the material, and also is really campy. It's definitely a low budget flick. It costs about $7 million to make. But the budget, I think, mostly went into either the cast or it went into the production design, which I think the production design is actually really good. I really think the production design of the film I thought was one of the highlights of this movie. And I'm actually going to look up the production designer right now so I can give whoever did that production design their proper, credit. I also thought the cinematography by Jax Hannikin was really solid for a film of this caliber. The film's directed by Tony Randel, and I have to say this is one of his more ambitious efforts. He's part to blame, though, why there isn't that much martial arts. Majority of the martial arts is at the climax, and I do like the martial arts there. I'm trying to find the production designer. Art direction. Production design by Clark Hunter, and art direction by Wendy Guidry. Set decoration by Tracy Kirschbaum. Costume design by Mary Lawson. All of them did a really solid job in that regard. I thought the special effects were all right for a low budget. The special effects makeup by Paul Salamoff. I think the main thing is people were expecting it to be exactly like the anime. And part of me is almost like, would you really want it to be 100% exactly like the anime? Just a live action version of it? I'm just being honest here. Because then it would just be a severe case of deja vu. And then you're just like, I already saw this movie. So I'm one of those people that's actually okay if they take some few liberties here now and then with the material. It's just about doing it justice, and I think a lot of people don't feel the film did it justice, but I would disagree. I don't think it's that awful of a movie. I don't think it's a 3.9 worthy film. I'm sorry. A 3.9 out of 10 for this movie in IMDb is way too low. I wouldn't say this is a great movie. No, I would say now, after watching it again, I'd say that, and after also seeing the anime, reading some of the manga, which I haven't done in a while, I should revisit the anime sometime, and I'd have to say that this doesn't hold up as well as I remember it. I loved it as a kid, as a teenager, and now as an adult, it doesn't hold up as well. But I still find it enjoyable. I mean, it's a really quick, fast-paced movie. It's about 90 minutes. It's not very long. It does have some slow parts in the middle, and the acting is not good, okay? Costa Mandylor actually is alright as Lord Shen. He surprised me. He does a good job playing an intimidating presence. Gary Daniels is not a master thespian, and it definitely shows here. But he's a great martial artist. He's a very underrated martial artist, and he showcases, so I thought, was some pretty badass martial arts at the end of the film. I know people said it's poorly choreographed and poorly made. I highly disagree. I'm sorry. I really do. I thought the fight choreography at the end, I thought the end fight between Shin and Kenshiro was actually really, really well done for the little bit of a low budget that they had. I thought Gary Daniels did more than a few good jump kicks, spin kicks, one really impressive kick where he stands and then he high kicks with one foot, kicks Shin in the face, you know, extends his entire leg from a standing position and kicks him right in the face. I thought that was a really standout moment. And also the scene where he's taking on all of Shin's guards and just pwns like 20 people all at once. I thought was pretty badass. He just kicks, just beats 20 people's asses. That was a lot of fun to watch. I think the whole thing is it could have used a little bit more martial arts. It was trying to build up the plot and the storyline, and at moments it did work. Majority of the cast, to be honest, not the greatest acting in the world. Not even remotely, not even close to it. I'd probably say this is definitely a B movie, but I thought it was enjoyable. Chris Penn as Jackal. I know it changed the character. The original character's name in the anime was not Jackal. It was something completely different. And so fans of the anime were upset at that. I guess the Japanese dub version of this film actually used the original voice actors from the 1980s anime series. In the movie, Lynn, the little girl, is blind. In the original comic book series, she is mute. So they changed that up a little bit. I didn't think it was that bad. I actually liked the little bit that she was blind. I thought the actress did a decent job, too, who played Lynn, Nalona Herron. And, but Isako Washio played Julia, who is the wife of Lord Shin and who is a love interest for Kenshiro. Not the greatest actress in the world. She had like one line delivery scene where she actually did a good job, I thought, where she tells the Lord Shin, like, hit me. I am already dead. But then the rest of her performance is really, really terrible. I gotta be honest. That's how I looked at it. Chris Penn is Jackal. I know it was a different name. It doesn't come to me at the moment right now what his name was in the anime and manga. I think it was not Jackal. It was something else. It did start with a J though, but it was not Jackal. I didn't mind Chris Penn. He was over the top. You know, it ain't easy being sleazy. You know, the whole speech he has to his group of, ruthless, dick bags before they invade Paradise City. I think it's Paradise City, which is funny. Paradise City, take me down to Paradise City. I don't think it's called Paradise. It's Paradise Town or something. It's called Paradise. I know it's called Paradise. So anyway, of course, it's ironic because it's set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and there's acid rain, and people barely can even have water, let alone good living conditions. It was not really paradise. But anyway, I like the whole thing where you have the whole where he has this speech where it's really corny, but he has this speech where he's all talking about trying to pump up his troops, and it's like, let's go kill some people. It's just, hey, this is being honest. I mean, there was a lot of sugarcoating there. I had fun with Chris Penn's character. I really did. He was over the top, but it was entertaining, I thought. Melvin Van Peebles had a brief role as Asher. He did a pretty good job. Same for Downtown Julie Brown as Charlie. Dante Basco, Rufio himself, plays Bat, who I guess is a completely different character in the anime and the manga, a little bit more obnoxious. Here he actually can fight, which I guess he couldn't do in the comic or the manga. And yeah, he dies. Dante Basco seems to die a lot. So they said, hey, he died in Hook. Let's make him die in Fist of the North Star. Tracey Walter, Bob from Batman, 1989, plays Paul McCarthy in a really brief role, and Clint Howard has a cameo as a Stalin. I guess he's Stalin, and then Vader from WWF plays Goliath, and I actually had a lot of fun with his fight scene with Gary Daniels. I had fun with that scene. And Malcolm McDowell has a brief cameo as Ryukin, which is really like, why is he playing Ryukin? Like, why couldn't we cast somebody actually Asian for this character? What the fuck is Malcolm McDowell doing playing Ryukin? I mean, I have to admit, yeah, I mean, there were some aspects of it, you know, there's like only one Asian actor, and it was the girl, Isako Washio, and everyone else, if you had other Asian actors, they were just bit roles, or people to get their asses kicked by Gary Daniels. You could do worse than Gary Daniels, and because at least he's a good martial artist, at least he can fight, at least he's talented in that regard. So at least when you have fight scenes, they're fun to watch. And I have to admit, yeah, I would have loved to see more heads explode like in the anime. But I look at the film and I see the budget that it had, and I realized that it really couldn't get away with that. And then also the MPAA would have just, this movie was direct-to-video anyway. It might not have even seen the light of day if it was Rikio gory, if you know what I mean. But I have to admit, that's just a little bit of a letdown if you've seen the anime and you see the live-action film, and it's not nearly as gory. But it does have some blood. It is bloody. It is kind of disappointing when Gary Daniels fights this one guy who's trying to kill Tracey Walter and his wife in one scene, and he does the whole, you know, like boom, and then the guy's like, oh, his head starts getting bigger, and then you just hear his head explode off screen. I mean, that was kind of disappointing. And then you see, the only time you see any of the head exploding stuff is when Chris Penn gets his the wrap around his head that's keeping his head from exploding ripped off, and at the end by a bunch of gears, and then his head explodes. You see a brief shot of his head blowing up, but it's not really, it's not Scanner Cop, or it's not Scanner's good. It's just like a couple pockets of his head blow up with blood spraying. It is a little bit of a letdown. But the moment where Shin ends up creating the five, you know, you know, the symbols of the North Star on his chest, I thought were really well done. Puts his fingers in his chest and pulls them out. Blood sprays everywhere. The scene where Shin has this thing, this death touch, where he touches this one guy and he starts bleeding out of his arms and out of his chest. That was pretty well done for the effects and so forth. But mainly, yeah, Fist of the North Star went through the cast here. Fist of the North Star is a 1995 film adaptation of a highly acclaimed anime and manga series. And first off, the expectations fans of the series had for this movie were way too high, and there's no way it was going to live up to them. Especially since it was a really pretty fairly low budget. Yeah, it had a $6.77 million budget. That's a decent amount of money. But that's not counting, you know, it's not, I don't even know how it was distributed. I don't even know really what was going on, how much budget was used for what. I think the production design might have been the majority of it, because I like the world this film created. I really did. And I actually didn't mind the score by Christopher Stone, who also did the music for Ticks, which Tony Randel directed around the same time. Would I would definitely say I like Ticks better, but you can't really compare those two movies. You really can't compare Fist of the North Star to Ticks. Two completely different movies. But I thought Tony Randel did a lot of interesting touches with his visual style in this movie that I've never seen him do before. He tried to direct an epic, a B-movie epic, and I thought he did a decent job with it, with his directing and the way, and sometimes a little bit too many crossfades. But other times I thought it really worked and added a nice little bit of style to the film that it wouldn't have had otherwise. And like I said, the production design I really like. The propaganda posters all over the place showing that Julia is the future. She's the mother of the future. The references to Stalin with some of the paintings, Art Deco style paintings of Shin. Um, the propaganda posters that say progress, the whole look of the apocalyptic wasteland, the look of the Southern Cross town or the tower, I thought was actually pretty well done for a low budget. There were some shots in the film that totally looked like something out of a music video. I'll definitely have to say, yes, there was some music video shots. There's some interesting, I thought the fight choreography in the end I thought was fine. I think the one thing that it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't jaw-dropping, but it was fine. It was decent enough. It showcased Gary Daniels' skills. But you could tell Costa Mandylor is not a martial artist, and I think that's one of the things that hurt it a little bit. Costa Mandylor looked the part of Shin, but he really is not a good martial artist at all. He isn't even a martial artist. So when you put Gary Daniels up against a guy who isn't even a martial artist, more of a brawler, it did kind of, it wasn't as good as it could have been. But I thought it was all right. And anyway, the film, it starts out with this narration by Malcolm McDowell, and then Malcolm McDowell gets killed by Costa Mandylor's character, Lord Shin. And Malcolm McDowell shows up like later in the film in random fucking ways. Like his corpse comes out of the fucking ground and talks to Kenshiro in like a really bad makeup effect. He comes out of the ground and it's a really shitty looking mummy or whatever the fuck it is. Makeup effect design. It just looks awful. And he's all like, "It is your destiny. You cannot escape your destiny, Kenshiro." And of course, you know, Gary Daniels is like, "No!" Gary Daniels' acting in this is not good. Like I said, he's not a master thespian. Not even in the slightest. He would get a little bit better with his performance acting wise in later films. And I would say in retrospect this isn't even his best or my favorite. This is the first film I saw that had Gary Daniels in it, so it did introduce me to not only Kenshiro, the Fist of the North Star manga and anime, but it also was the thing that introduced me to Gary Daniels. And so this film was another first in that regard. And I'd say Rage, Riot are better films with Gary Daniels than this. I'd say Rage is probably my favorite Gary Daniels movie. Some really amazing stunts in that film, and some really, really standout action sequences. A little bit more, definitely a lot more memorable than anything in this movie. But I like the way the look of the film, the post-apocalyptic wasteland. There's like a submarine that's in the middle of the desert. It kind of looked like the video game Fallout might have been loosely inspired by this film's production design, which is interesting. And so I like the look of the film. I like the world it created. I didn't mind the score by Christopher Stone, especially the opening credits theme. Some parts it was a little bit overblown. So anyway, going back to the whole plot, Shin kills Malcolm McDowell's character, Ryukin. And then throughout the whole film, you get cut to flashbacks of what happened to Gary Daniels' character, Kenshiro. Shin fought Shin right after he killed Ryukin, got in a fight with Kenshiro and made those marks on his chest that you see right here. Which I know people have said they look like pepperoni slices. I disagree. I thought that makeup effects were perfectly fine. I never looked at them and saw pepperoni slices. I saw, you know, scarring from having somebody's fingers poked in your chest and then ripped out. And he takes, and in that ensuing fight, he rips those holes in Kenshiro's chest, leaves him to die, and then takes his girlfriend Julia away from him and leaves him to die. And so then that's a flashback scene. In the present day, Kenshiro is like a drifter, drifting around town, around, you know, the wastelands, and helping people on the way. He helps Tracey Walter, messes up the guy who played a Bobo in Double Dragon. The guy who plays a Bobo before he gets turned into that disgusting spinach-eating, spinach fart fuckface of a monster in Double Dragon. And and Gary Daniels, I thought he looked the part of Kenshiro. I mean, he wasn't a great actor, but he was a good, decent martial artist, and he kind of looked like the same build of the character. But if I was going to recast him, I probably would do Mark Dacascos, since he is closer to he's Asian, a little bit closer to what people were looking for. Brandon Lee would be awesome, but Brandon Lee wouldn't do something like this. But Mark Dacascos would be a nice choice. And but I think, this is literally probably being shot around the same time that Double Dragon was. So he's probably too busy making a fool of himself in Double Dragon to play Kenshiro. But what's interesting is, I guess Steve Wang was considered to direct a sequel to this, and it never happened, which that sucks, because I would have loved to have seen Steve Wang do a sequel to this movie with maybe even Mark Dacascos in the lead, just because, you know, he directed Mark Dacascos and Drive, and to see what Steve Wang did with another anime and manga series, Guyver and Guyver 2 Dark Hero, it would be great to see what he could have done with Fist of the North Star. And this isn't the first adaptation, a live-action adaptation of Fist of the North Star. It's the only, I guess, official or whatever, or American. There's like there's other adaptations that are even worse. They're on YouTube, like other adaptations for other countries that are just 10 times worse than this is. So if you think this is bad, go check out some of the other adaptations of Fist of the North Star live action. They're cheaper, they're even worse than this is, and they don't even have barely any martial arts. They have martial arts, but it looks like chop suey type. It basically looks like a fucking Fist of the North Star movie directed by Godfrey Ho. So, if you want to see a Fist of the North Star movie directed by Godfrey Ho, and go ahead and look up the clips of the other Fist of the North Star live-action movies. And when you look at those in retrospect compared to this movie isn't nearly that awful. But anyway, Kenshiro saves, it's not Clint Howard. Clint Howard's the villain. He saves Tracey Walter. He saves Bob's life. And that's the one where he fucks up the guy who played a Bobo, but his head blows up off screen. And then he walks off into the wasteland again. And somehow along the way, he ends up meeting up with Bat, played by Dante Basco, and his sister, who Lynn, played by Nalona Herron. And I like the little touch that this film has of a music box she keeps playing throughout the whole film. And she's blind, and Kenshiro ends up opening her eyes and making it so she's not blind anymore, and he heads off on his own again. And Paradise City or Paradise Town or whatever the fuck it is gets attacked by these by the Southern Crossmen, and they're actually one of the vehicles that they're using to drive around with machine guns and stuff. These like circle cars are reused props from Space Hunter Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, which is pretty funny actually. And I noticed that. I was like, hey, those are the cars from Space Hunter. So they're using those, and I actually thought these scenes were well shot and definitely horrific. Of the scenes where these the Southern Crossmen are going around just raping and murdering and killing people in the Paradise Town, just fucking up people and, you know, stabbing people. One guy, he looks like Robert De Niro as Frankenstein, and he's like obsessed with fire. And I don't know the guy's name. It's the actual character's name, and I don't really know what his name was or who the actor was, but I thought he did a good job, regardless. Did his best Robert De Niro impersonation, and did his best Robert De Niro impression throughout the entire film. And I liked the little bit of the plot that showed that this guy kind of cared for Lynn. Like, she's just a kid, you know. You don't need to hurt her, you know. And there's one time where she's about to get beheaded, actually, by a guillotine, until Chris Penn, she says, like, Kenshiro will get you. Kenshiro will stop you. And, of course, Chris Penn stops the guillotine from cutting off her head. Is like, what'd you say? You got anything else to say, you little bitch? You know, I loved how Chris Penn, like, he just had no qualms about how evil his performance was. And it was just really enjoyable. You know, like, it ain't easy being sleazy, you know, and it's just, you know, welcome to the future. You know, just a decent, I enjoyed his performance. I don't know what it was. It was, you know, may you rest in peace, Chris Penn, because I know he passed away a while back. But I had fun with his performance in this. It was just, it was giddily sadistic. It was like one of those, like, enjoyably sadistic performances. So anyway, you know, even the little girl smacks him in the face, and of course, you know, you little bitch, that's where you're gonna get it now. Oh, you see that? You see that? That's all brand new, and you're gonna be the first one to get to ride it, which was the guillotine. And he stops the guillotine from killing her because he's talking about Kenshiro, and you find out that he had a past with Kenshiro in that flashback scene where he got fucked up by Shin. He actually messed up Chris Penn, and the reason why he's wearing this, you know, like tape sort of mask is to keep his head from exploding. And of course he wants revenge, so he hears about Kenshiro, and of course he wants to get him. And so they end up taking the girl and everybody else, and they imprison them as slaves. And Dante Basco, he ends up he's getting attacked by these guys in like some carnival that's in the middle of the fucking wasteland. Kenshiro comes in, kicks their asses, and then he goes off on his own. And then Dante Basco follows him. Actually falls down because he's exhausted in the desert. And like I guess a lot of time went by because the desert almost buries his ass. And then Kenshiro comes in and wakes him up, and then he hears the little girl scream while everything is going on at Paradise City. Everybody's getting, people are getting raped and killed and burned. Like the guy who looks at Robert De Niro's burning people. It's like throw some gasoline on some poor guy, and he's like throws a Molotov cocktail on his ass and lights his ass on fire. He's like, burn! Everybody, this guy is fucked up. This is fucked up. And then Kenshiro hears her scream, and of course it bugs him, and so he realizes that it is his destiny to go in and help, and save whatever is left of this world. So he goes back to Paradise City to try to save Lynn, and Dante Basco shows him a shortcut. They go underground. Then he, of course, during this sort of stuff, you cut back to Isako Washio's character Julia and Shin, played by Costa Mandylor, and the whole sort of drama there where she's like, kill me, I'm already dead. Basically, like, you suck. She's holding on to these seeds that Kenshiro gave her before she got taken by force by Shin. And Shin gets pissed off and is like, stop thinking about the past. That knocks the seeds out of her hands, and one falls in a crack. Later in the film, it actually blooms, and it gives Shinshiro some hope during the end battle. Yeah, that was pretty corny. But anyway, so then you have this sort of dynamic between the two, and Shin's talking about, I'm just trying to build the future. I'm trying to do everything for you. It's for you. My life is nothing without you, Julia. It's that sort of thing. Like, I'm trying to progress, save humanity. That was actually a pretty good sort of combination of Nero and Stalin. It was like Nero, Stalin, the whole sort of thing, progress. We're going to save the world, but by force. You don't have a choice. There's no more choice anymore. It's going to be my world and my creation. And it will be glorious! No, Sarah, if you think this is bad, you need to see Mortal Kombat Annihilation again. That's 10 times worse than this movie. It will be glorious! Anyway, no it won't, Shao Kahn. No it won't. Well, anyway, Fist of the North Star, going back to Fist of the North Star. So you have that little drama going on. Kenshiro ends up saving Lynn. She's getting basically harassed by Vader, plays this character named Goliath, and he's all like, tell me where he is, or I'm gonna kill you! Ah! Fly, little birdie, fly! Lifting up the cage, and Kenshiro comes in. Of course, I forgot to mention earlier, pretty fun, sort of cartoonish, kind of throwback to the anime, where he kicks some dude in the face and his jaw gets sent the other way. But anyway, Kenshiro goes after, and of course the training scenes where you see that Gary Daniels is pretty much can do the splits just like Van Damme. It crushes a rock with his rippling biceps. But anyway, going back to the showdown with him and Vader, which I like. Vader's kicking his ass, throwing him all over the room, throws him through a window, and he's like, there are no more heroes! And then Gary Daniels gets, mad, and he gets up, Kenshiro gets up and kicks fucking Vader's ass, and I like this scene where he's beating the shit out of him, kicking him in the face, knocking him over. He's got him, he gets him on his knees, he grabs him by his, he's got his arms around his neck, and he's all like, and Vader's like, who are you? And Kenshiro, Gary Daniels is like, Fist of the North Star! And then just breaks his fucking neck. I didn't mind that line delivery. It's corny. I mean, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but I just thought it was kind of pretty cool. And so then he kills Vader, and Dante Basco tries to save, I think he tries to save Lynn or somebody from Chris Penn, and Chris Penn ends up stabbing him. and he dies. It's like, oh, look out, he's got a knife. Stupid kid. He kills him. And then, he actually he thought he killed him, but he gets back up again and knocks out Jackal. And Jackal ends up getting captured by the rest of the survivors, the prisoners that were taken from Paradise City. And Kenshiro lets him go and tells him that the flag of the North Star is flying over Paradise Valley. And it was at Paradise Valley. I think that's what it is, not Paradise City. Flies over Paradise Valley. And so then he lets him go. And then the climax of the film is sort of a mix of a sort of showdown between Julia and Jackal mixed with a final fight between Shin and Kenshiro. And at first, Kenshiro is just kicking the shit out of Shin. Like, it's not even a fair fight. Then Shin basically lies to him and says, Julia, my lovely flower, she's dead. He's like, and of course, I mean, Gary Daniels' acting in this is LOL. It literally is. It's laugh out loud hilarious, especially the looks on his face. Like, she's dead. He's like, that's not the exact look on his face, but the looks on his face are fucking funny. They're funny in themselves. Just like, and then he gets his ass kicked. And like I said, Costa Mandylor is no martial artist, so he's just doing a lot of throwing Kenshiro through glass and shit and smacking him against a wall. And then all the while you're cutting back to Jackal, who's trying to have some fun with Julia. She ends up getting the upper hand. Finally, she takes his straps on his head, hooks it up to a gear, and rips his straps off, and his head blows up. And Kenshiro looks like all was lost, and he actually got Shin used his touch of death on him, and like his blood popped, blood popped out of his chest and his arms, and spraying everywhere, and he falls down. But then he sees the flower. The seed that he gave to Julia grew, and I'm like, that is so corny. And so, but that gives him the strength to kick Shin's ass, and he does. And I thought it was a pretty enjoyable, fun fight at the end. I mean, he does a few spin kicks, does a few jump kicks to the face, does that cool, like I said earlier, that cool. Of course, before all this, I forgot to mention, I can't believe it. He fought off like 20 fucking guys before he even got to Shin, which I had fun with. Although these guys are no match for Gary Daniels. You can tell they're not even established martial artists. But it was still pretty badass to watch one guy just take down like 20 fucking guys at once. It was pretty cool. And so then he takes on like 20 guys and kicks all their asses. And he's just standing in the middle of just this crowd of just knocked out guards of the Southern Cross, and then he goes in to fight Shin, and then he kicks Shin's ass, and the only time he doesn't have the upper hand is when Shin lies to him. So then he beats shit out of Shin, and he gets the upper hand. It does that cool front kick, like I said, where he's standing straight, and then he lifts one leg up and high up in the air and kicks him in the face, and then he ends up knocking Shin out. And then he asks Shin, Julia, is she still alive? And of course he's like, no, she's dead. And then Kenshiro balls up his fist in rage and just punches him in the head, killing him. And then Julia survived. She killed Jackal. And Kenshiro, he walks out of the tower, and there's all this army, of Southern Cross army waiting for him. And he puts up his fist like he's ready, but he's exhausted. And then they kneel, and then the look on his face is classic too. He's just like, and then he turns around, and there's Julia, and they embrace, and then the movie pans back to a statue of Shin, and then it fades to black, and then that's the end of Fist of the North Star, the 1995 live-action adaptation of the manga and anime. I like it all right. I think it's an enjoyable, okay, decent flick for what it is. Is it great? No. I mean, there's definitely some slow spots. The moments of camp and humor sometimes didn't really mesh. Performances were pretty bad, acting-wise. Chris Penn was probably the best actor out of everybody in the film, which is... Well, Melvin Van Peebles did a good job too, but, I mean, yeah, Gary Daniels is no master thespian. His looks on his face were just laugh out loud hilarious half the time. Just like, and his performance wasn't very good. But he was a good martial artist, and he showed his martial arts, and I had fun with that. I really think the movie could use a lot more martial arts, and even Gary Daniels admitted that in the commentary. And I guess he actually enjoyed his role in the film so much that he named one of his sons Kenshiro. And I guess Winston Omega, who's the fight choreographer for the movie, was also Gary Daniels' martial arts instructor. A little bit of interesting trivia there. But I enjoy the movie all right for what it is. I can have some fun with it. Some fun, chop suey entertainment with some fun martial arts bits that are there. I like the character that Gary Daniels plays, even though he's not the greatest actor. Costa Mandylor has a pretty, I thought he had a pretty good presence as a villain. You definitely did want him to get his ass kicked. And I like the bits of the score by Christopher Stone. I love the production design. I think it's very underrated. And I thought the direction by Tony Randel was solid. I think that it could have used more fighting, but Tony Randel's somewhat to blame for that. It could have used a little bit more martial arts and just a little bit at the little bits and pieces now and then in the beginning and then at the end. But for what it is, I enjoyed it. So really don't know what to say about Fist of the North Star, except we're rated at 5 stars. I would say it's an average film. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an average movie. It's not 3.9 bad. I'm sorry. I don't think it's that insufferably terrible. That's why I think I give it 3 out of 5 stars. It's definitely a step down from what I would have given it when I was a teen. But I've seen a lot better Gary Daniels movies. I've seen better martial arts flicks. I've seen better adaptations of manga and anime. Guyver 2, Dark Hero. I'm talking about that movie. That's a lot better than this. And but it has its moments. It really does. It has its moments. It's not entirely terrible. It's not the worst thing ever. I think it's a little bit undervalued in some respects.